Yashoda Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Om Jnana-Tirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadavayam Deham Shri Guru Siddhapadakama Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupan Sarvam Tam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadipletam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Pitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Anshakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Behevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 15, The Appearance of Shukadeva Goswami. Text 15. Tam Ma Upayatam Pratyantu Vipraha Ganga Cha Devi Drita Chitam Yeshe Dvija Uparashata Kaha Kaha Takshakaha Va Dashato Alam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Duttachittameshi Vijo Pashrishta Kuhakastakashkova Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Duttachittameshi Dvijopajishta Kuhakastakakshova Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Duttachittameshi Dvijopashratsa Kuhakastatakshokva Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Tammopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Duttachittameshi Vijopashishta Kuhakastakshakova Dashatvalam Gayata Vishnu Gata
Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Jita Chittamishe Vijopasrishta Kuhakastakshakova Dashatvalangayata Vishnu Gataha
Hare Krishna.
Tammopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dritachittamishe Dvijopasrishta Kuhakastakshakova Tashathalam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammopayantam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dritachittamishe Dvijopasrishta Kuhakastakshakova Dashatvalam Gayate Vishnu Gataha
Tammopayatam Pratyanti Vipra
Payatam Bhativantu Vipra
Ganga cha Devi Drita Chittamishe
Ganga cha Devi Drita Chittameshe
Dvijopashrishta Kuhakasta Shakova
Vijo Parishta Kahukasta Takshova
Dashatvalam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Dashatvalam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Tammo payatam pratiyantu vipra
Tamopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra
Ganga cha devi trita chittamise
Ganga cha Devi Drita Chittameshe
Dvijo pasrishta kuhakas takshakova
Vijo Parishta Kahukasta Takshova
Dashatvalam gayata vishnu gataha
Ashatpalam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Tamopayatam pratiyantu vipra
Dhamopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra
Ganga cha devi drita chittamishe
Chittameshe
Dvijo pasrishta kuhakas takshakova
Vijo Parishta Kahukasta Takshova
Dashatvalam gayata vishnu gataha
Ashatpalam Gayatam Vishnu Gataha
Tammopayantam Pratiyantu Vipra
Payantam Tiyantu Vipra
Ganga cha Devi Drita Chittamishe
Ganga cha Devi Drita Chittameshe
Dvijopasristas Kuhakas Takshakova
Vijo Parishta Kahukasta Takshova
Dashatvalam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Ashatpalam Gayata Vishnu For that reason, me, upayantam, taken shelter of, pratyantu, just accept me, vipraha, O brahmanas, Ganga, Mother Ganges, cha, also, Devi, direct representative of the Lord, Dritaha, taken into, Chitam, heart, Eshe, unto the Lord, Dvija Uparashtrishta, created the Brahmana, Kuhakaha, something magical, Takshakaha, the snake bird, Va, either, Dashatu, let it bite, Alam, without further delay, Gayata, please go on singing, Vishnu Gataha, narration of the deeds of Vishnu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird, or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Purport: as soon as one person is given up completely unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he is not at all afraid of death. The atmosphere created by the presence of great devotees of the Lord on the bank of the Ganges and Maharaj Parikshit's complete acceptance of the Lord's lotus feet were sufficient guarantee for the king for going back to Godhead. He thus became absolutely free from all fear of death. Guru Maharaj, would you like to speak anything on this verse? Okay, thank you. Okay, with your devotees' blessings, hopefully I can speak something worthy that I've heard Prabhupada speak or any of the acharyas speak. So, Maharaj Parikshit, we know that he was born in the Kuru clan, and he was put during the time that, in the Mahabharata, the clan was being put to a great test. And in this way, he got the name Parikshit, which is stemming from a word parikshan, meaning one who has been put to a great test. And he inherited the kingdom of the Kurus after the Pandavas. So, Maharaj Parikshit, we know that he was a great saintly king, a Rajarsi at that. And we know from Bhagavad Gita, Imam Rajashayo Viduhu, that the saintly kings during this time period, they understood the God-conscious knowledge. And all the kings in those days, they were trained up in such a way that they were all saintly persons taking the direction of the Brahminical class of men so they could lead society in the best way possible according to God's law. They were not debauchees as we have in today's materialistic civilization. The leaders in today's materialistic civilization, they're not qualified to lead whatsoever. So the person who is assigned the duty of sweeping the street and the person who is assigned the duty of the administrative class of government, they're more or less equals. They're both Shudras. They're not knowledgeable on God's law. And so the person sweeping the street automatically thinks, this man, he is forcing me to sweep the street, and he's sitting comfortably in his chair. Society, it cannot work like this. We see in this ISKCON society that Srila Prabhupada created, he's sitting very nicely in his chair, right on the Vyasasana. We're offering him the most delectable foodstuffs. We're offering him nice cloth every day. We're offering him worship, praise. We're paying obeisances to him when we enter in this temple room. The best garlands that we have available. Why? Because he's a perfect man. He has set a perfect example. So that mentality must be there in society. Everyone in society must be able to say, yes, I have spent some time or I have observed this man and he has led a perfect life. So I want to serve him. I see that he can guide me out of darkness and he has my best interest at heart. Because these perfect kings, they had the interest of all the citizens at heart because they were employing God's will perfectly. So in this way, everyone in the community could equally make spiritual advancement and everything could remain civilized. But this is not a civilized society we live in today, unfortunately. It's an animalistic society. And this is why communism doesn't work. There's no qualified leader. Therefore, there must be one class of men who are directing or enjoying. More or less, the directors are taking this enjoyment as some kind of servitorship to, the people who are so-called superior to them or working class. And then we need that working class for a society to work properly. And in this way, everyone will share equal happiness because the people serving will get just as much pleasure serving the person who is the perfect person. Because they know, this person, he's perfect. Why wouldn't somebody want to serve him? And that is one of the things that we have in this society. We can see Srila Prabhupada, he was a perfect example of a perfect human being. So many people bow down at his lotus feet and touch his lotus feet. Because we don't mind serving him. We say, I'm a rascal, you lead me. So just because the high court judge, he doesn't practice any type of manual labor, he's sitting in his chair, he's getting a big salary, isn't it? High court judge makes much money. And the person who is sweeping the courtroom after the trial, he is not getting that much money. But does that mean that the judge is not doing any service because he's not doing any physical labor? No. The judge is qualified. He has the qualification, and he doesn't do that kind of labor specifically. So this theory that one performs, one who only performs manual labor is the only one doing service. This is a peasant's philosophy. I was hearing Srila Prabhupada talk about this yesterday with Guru Maharaj. And he was mentioning that there's a story of a king, and one of the king's salaried workers, he was saying, this prime minister, he's getting paid such a nice wages, and we're doing all the work, basically. So why is this? He's getting such a large salary, and we're getting, very little. We're busting our backs, and not getting paid much. And the king, he called the prime minister in before the workers, and he also had one of his servants bring in an elephant. And he said that, "My dear worker, please go out, and I need you to weigh this elephant." And so the workers, they took it out, and they took many, many hours going and searching here and there, trying to find a scale to weigh the elephant. And they couldn't find a scale big enough. So they brought the elephant back to the king, and the king said, "What happened?" And the workers said, "We couldn't find a scale large enough to weigh this elephant." And then the king said, "Very well, Mr. Prime Minister, please go out and weigh this elephant." The prime minister took the elephant out, and within a few minutes he was back. And the king asked him, "How much does the elephant weigh?" He said, 11,650 pounds. And the workers were astonished. They were saying, "How did you weigh the elephant? What, do you have a hidden giant scale that we don't know about? You were back within an hour." And the prime minister said, "No, I do not have a large scale. You cannot weigh an elephant by a scale. What I did was I went out to the river right there. I took the boat. I put the elephant on top of the boat, and I measured the watermark. After I measured the watermark, I took the elephant back onto the shore, and I simply put weights on until the watermark was equal. And then I had the elephant's weight." So in this way, we can understand that somebody who is qualified, intelligence means strength. This prime minister, he was qualified. So these saintly kings, they were very, very qualified. And Maharaj Parikshit, he had real intelligence. Maharaj Parikshit, he recognized the Supreme Lord as the controller of the both transcendental and mundane worlds, as it is said in the last purport that we read yesterday with Valmiki. Mayayat shena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam hetunane nakunteya jagad vivapapartate. Bhagavad Gita 10:9. I think we covered that verse yesterday. Krishna says, "This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti. It is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By the rule of this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again." So Maharaj Parikshit, he recognized this. So he was not disturbed when the Brahmana boy Shringi cursed him. This Brahmana boy Shringi, he cursed him to die of a snake bite within 7 days for creating some minor offense to the Brahmana boy's father, Rishi Shamika. And basically Maharaj Parikshit, he was a hunter, and in those times, the kings, he was a king, Maharaj Parikshit, and in those times, the kings would go out and hunt for sport. And basically, he was doing such, and he got lost of some sort. And he got thirsty and hungry. So he went in, as we've been hearing, to Shamika's hermitage, his Bhajan Kutir, and he came across this great saint who was in trance. And he was asking him, "Dear sir, dear saintly person, please give me some water." maybe some food, I'm very hungry, and the saint was entranced, so he didn't respond. So Maharaj Parikshit, he got a little disturbed, and he picked up this dead snake, and he garlanded Samika with this dead snake. And in that way, the Brahmana's son, who was sitting there, the Brahmana who was entranced, his son, Shringi, cursed Maharaj Parikshit to die within 7 days for this minor offense. But when Maharaj Parikshit heard this curse, he could have reacted in so many different ways, right? He could have went back to his palace and started a war over this curse. He could have got bodyguards to guard him in every moment. He could have went out and enjoy material world for the last 7 days of his life. Like there was an old TV show where it was basically this guy had a prescribed time to live, and he just tried to enjoy material world to the utmost of his capacity before he died. Yeah. Maharaj Parikshit could have done so many things, but he knew Vasudeva Sarvamiti. He knew that Krishna is the cause of all causes. There's a reason for everything I'm doing. There's a reason for every single interaction that happens. There's a reason for every scenario that Krishna manifests in this material world. And he was able to ask, what can I learn from this situation? So this is something that we can really apply to our life. We can take all situations that arise in the material world, and we can ask, what does Krishna want me to learn from this situation? Because I know it just doesn't happen by chance. So Maharaj Parikshit, he expresses, saying that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has graciously overtaken me in the form of a curse by this Brahmana boy Shringi. And due to my being too much attached to family life of the Pandavas, who were great devotees, the Lord, in order to save me, had appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I can detach myself from the world. That's a position of humility. That's a position of real intelligence. Samahatma sudurlabha, right? To come to a conclusion like this is very rare. That somebody can take a humble approach like that. Maharaj Parikshit, I believe he was in his 60s, or around 60 when this happened, if I'm not mistaken. And traditionally in the Vedic culture, at the age of 50, one takes the Vanapras ashram, and he retires from family life. But we see, holding the position of a great saintly king, he was still attached to family life. And he was being honest about this. And he was seeing that the Lord is granting this benediction upon me so I can detach myself from family life. And he was grateful for this curse. So it's not common for somebody to come to these conclusions. Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee of the Lord. And we know that there's so many different entanglements in family life. Even somebody who becomes diseased in family life, and the family members more or less neglect him, put him in a nursing home, or don't pay much attention to him. Of course, this is not the Vedic way, but this is the way of life that we have been accustomed to here in the West. Okay, once grandma gets sick, we'll put her in a nursing home. Even once this happens, the person being neglected by the family members still cannot give up attachment to family life. This is how strong it is, this family attachment. So when somebody is sufficiently adapt to take up spiritual life full time, then they traditionally would retire into the forest and focus every last moment of their life into realizing the nature of the Transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the chance that Maharaj Parikshit has been given by the Lord due to the Lord's arrangement. So he can be spoken to this wonderful story of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Maharaj Parikshit, he was in a position of Sarvadharmam Prityaja Mamekam Saranam Vraja Aham Tam Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Yami Masucha. He was completely surrendered. He was completely surrendered. He had no other desire, no other material desire anymore after being cursed than to sit on the bank of the holy river and hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because he knew that for the soul there is no birth, there is no death, there is no disease, there is no old age. Nothing that this Brahmana boy can do can kill my soul. He understood this. He understood whether it's a snake bird or some magical creature, or you drowned me, I'm in a tornado, you send a great windstorm, the soul cannot be withered by the wind. Cannot drown in the water, cannot be burned by the fire. Maharaj Parikshit, understanding this transcendental knowledge as a saintly king, he understood this about the nature of the soul. So he said, I need to not waste any time. I need to just hear this transcendental Srimad Bhagavatam so I can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the presence of Krishna's devotee, there was all the greatest sages in all of the universe assembled in this assembly of sages. And in the presence of all these great devotees, Maharaj Parikshit understood that Krishna was here. Why? Because Krishna is with his pure devotees. So he could understand it in this way, that this is a sign from God. This was like a reassuring thing to Maharaj Parikshit, that there's all these great sages here on the bank of the river. Krishna must be here. He must be trying to tell me something. So this fear that we're speaking of, this is due to a lack of Krishna consciousness, fear. Krishna says, have no fear. If somebody is conscious of Krishna, there cannot be any fear. But for one who has been entangled in different material pursuits, they are full of fear and anxiety in every moment. But the ocean of fear becomes very easy to cross by the mercy of the Supreme Controller. This material world, there's fear and there's danger at every step. It's not meant for those who have taken shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. Everyone, therefore, should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and have no fear, just like Maharaj Parikshit. He was not fearful of death. He welcomed it. He said, okay, I have 7 days. Let's go. Let's hear the Bhagavatam. So there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I believe it's after Krishna saves the cowherd boys from Aghasura, and he kills the demon Aghasura. I think it's around lunchtime, and the boys are a little... Krishna thinks, I bet you the cowherd boys are hungry. So he comes upon the bank of the holy river, and he says, my dear friends, the wind is blowing just right, there's fragrant flowers, the birds are chirping, the squirrels are prancing about. It's an extremely beautiful environment here on this bank of the river. Let's sit down and take our lunch. So Krishna sits down with the cowherd boys, and all the cowherd boys, they start unpacking their lunch, whatever mama brought for them that day. They're unpacking this and that. The boys are picking flowers and leaves, and they start honoring prasadam with Krishna. And they're cowherd boys, so they have a group of cows with them. And Krishna mentions that this grass, this is new fresh grass. The cows will be surely satisfied in this area. So let the cows take their lunch as well. Lunch on the grass with us, and we'll sit and have this pastime. This was the desire of the Lord. And as they begin to take their lunch, the cows start to wander off. They see some alluring grass in the distance. Oh, that grass looks a little tastier. So the cows go off and they start, taking grass here and there. And pretty soon the boys are absorbed in prasadam with the Lord, and pretty soon they notice that the cows, they're out of sight. They lose track of the cows. And in this way, the Brahmana boys, they become scared for their safety. They become fearful. And what do? They chant the Lord's name. And that relieves them from their fear. What does Krishna do? He says, my dear cowherd boys, my dear devotees, no need to be fearful. No need to get up and go get the cows. You sit here and you enjoy. You take your lunch together, and I'll get up and I'll go look for the cows. So in this way we can understand that fear personified, everyone is scared of fear personified. Everyone is scared of death. Everyone is scared of fear personified. But fear personified shakes in his boots by the name of Krishna. He is fearful of Krishna. So in this way, we can develop a fearless mentality, knowing that I'm doing everything I can to try to serve the Lord today. What do I have to worry about? All of these troubles of the mind or material situations that come up, are they really worth being in fear over? This material world, it's full of danger, it's full of fear. We have to be careful. But for a devotee, is it worth being fearful, knowing that we have the shelter of our Supreme Lord? Does anyone have any questions or comments on today's verse? Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I just had a couple comments. One, I was thinking about the difference between Kamsa and Maharaj Parikshit, and how Kamsa was conscious of Krishna too, but out of fear of Krishna killing him. But Maharaj Parikshit was conscious of Krishna out of love and wanting to hear his pastimes and his activities. So I thought that was nice. Then the second comment I have is, it seems to me like we need to have family attachment, but not mundane family attachment, spiritual family attachment. We need to have those interactions based on the 6 loving exchanges. And so the more we become attached to that type of family, the less we're going to be attached to mundane family. And so I always think, Prabhupada talks about a lot about family attachment. And every time I hear that, I think about, okay, well, we can't create a void here. I can't just get rid of that. We need to replace it with spiritual family attachment. And everyone needs that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Very nice comments. Yes, this is why there's various ashrams. Some ashrams are designated for spiritualizing family life. Other ashrams are meant for renunciation to, various things, maybe including family as well, depending on if it's favorable or not for devotional service. Okay, thank you for kindly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.